Ants. You know what I just learned?
What?
Which is random, but while we're waiting to make sure we're live, did you know that there are counties in the state of Colorado in which permits are not required?
How many are there?
Well, so apparently in Weld County, like permits aren't required for like a lot of
Interesting.
things. Isn't
There
that
didn't
weird?
used to have to be permits out in Calhoun.
I remember you going through that. And
Yeah, that's a super fun process.
Yeah. All right, so we are live. So first thing we're going to talk about today, and I'm going to be really fancy, hopefully, and drop this in our comments here in case anyone has any interest. But we're really excited and we're super honored because we are going this week to be featured panelists at the Real Estate Mega Moms Abundance Conference in Kansas City, Missouri. And the Mega Moms have become friends of ours and they're amazing. If you're not in the Real Estate Mega Moms Facebook group, you absolutely need to be. There's tons of value that happens in that group all the time. And one of the valuable things that they do is they host these amazing conferences a couple times a year. So this one is this week. Angela and I are driving out. So, if anybody wants to, join along with Thelma and Louise, we have room in the car. But this is happening from March 31st through April 1st. And they have some incredible speakers, including some women that we have been so lucky to have on our show. So Lee Brown, if you don't follow her, I've followed her for a million years. She is like the smiliest, most beautiful, classiest. Lee Brown looks to me like what a very beautiful politician would look like, if that makes sense, because she's always coiffed and smart. She's amazing. And also Makita Smith is speaking. She's absolutely unreal. Mary Maloney, Jessica Hensley, who is one of the owners and creators of Real Estate Mega Moms, along with Randy Para, who is her partner in Real Estate Mega Moms, and Stephanie Stockberger. So the three of them run that group together, and they're the conference hosts.
And then Tamika Bryant too, right?
Yeah. Kelly Higgins, Tamika Bryant, who we've had on the show, who's like, man,
we love her.
Like one of my favorite humans on earth. Lauren Taylor, who is like incredible. Angela Fugate, and Lindsay.
That's me.
Woo!
And Lindsay.
It's so dark, by the way, today. I'm getting flooring installed at my house, and so I'm at my mom's, and I didn't bring my ring light. But yeah, so the conference it's at the Lowe's Hotel in Kansas City, Missouri, and it's jam-packed with tons of opportunities to network and meet new people, get referrals, get your learn on. It's still really early in the year. I mean, we just finished, we haven't even finished first quarter. So there's tons of time to go there and learn how to implement things. And if not this conference, then the next one you should go to.
Definitely.
Faux show. Today we're going to talk about something funny. I feel like it's funny because
it's funny.
So I want to say this on the record. I have said things, Angela has said things on this show, right, where people are like, these girls are idiots because we're bringing up stuff like way in advance. And people are like, I don't understand why you're talking about this right now because it's not applicable. But I want to say that never one time in the almost 3 years, actually, we just passed our 3-year anniversary. Congratulations, friend. In the 3 years that we've been hosting this podcast, never one time have we ever said something that didn't end up being accurate, like literally in the history of the show.
Yeah.
So what we're going to talk about today is how to insulate yourself from the effects of inflation happening.
And maybe a changing market, maybe a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, in the last 24 hours, I will tell you guys, I've had text messages from 9 different clients who are supposed to list within the next 3 weeks, who are in a total meltdown panic because, clearly everyone, when they list a house, they watch their neighborhood, right? So these people are watching their neighborhoods and they're texting me, calling me, going, oh my God, house across the street went on the market. They didn't get any offers. I barely saw any cars over there this weekend. What the heck is going on? Like, are we going to be okay at our price that we talked about? So Definitely the world is starting to panic a little bit. So
for sure.
Unless you've been living under a rock, you have been feeling the effects of inflation, even if you don't know what it means. I mean, gas prices are very high, food prices are very high, home prices are very high. The Fed had originally said that they were going to do small little interest rate hikes, and now we're up about 1.25% in what, like 30 days? Not even.
It's a huge jump.
Huge jump. And then they're saying that they're going to increase potentially another 5 to 6 times by the end of the year. So while we are talking about this, while most people probably are still seeing the heyday of like multiple offers and craziness, we've got to talk about how to get ahead of shift before it happens.
Yeah. Because you're still going to be getting multiple offers right now, you know, like that's not stopping, but you might only get 2 or 3 instead of 15 to 38. So our sellers are conditioned to think there's something wrong. And that's our fault because we haven't set that expectation properly. Like, oh my God, if your house doesn't sell in 2 minutes, there's something wrong with it and it's never going to sell. That's not the case. Like a healthy market is like 30 days on the market. That's normal.
30 to 45, right?
Yeah.
And also, yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. Like that does bother me that this has become the expectation, right? So if someone doesn't, you know, and I will say for myself, the whole time, even through the last couple of years of this crazy market, every time I list a property, I do tell my clients, I want you to emotionally prepare to sit on the market for 2 weeks. Do I think that's going to happen? No, but I don't want you to do this, which is absolutely panic, right? When it doesn't go under contract in 12 hours, because they will. So you have to try to help manage those expectations.
Definitely. And I think that it's really important because Lindsay and I are still in the market selling every single day. We see this and we're starting to see this shift, especially with sellers where they're freaking out a little bit. I think that it's really important that when you're going to your listing appointment, if you're not talking about this and you're not telling and setting those expectations properly with your seller, and other agents are telling them still that it's going to go under contract in 8 seconds and you're going to get 55 offers and that's how it's going to happen, and you're giving them different information, you need to document where it's coming from. You need to show them the trends. You need to actually give them that knowledge, because the other agents are going to do whatever they can to get a competitive edge on you and might say, hey, well, I'm not seeing that. I'm going to be able to get it under contract in X days. And that might be something that
they don't know. They're not watching the trends, or they're not listing enough to be like feeling the trends, right? But yeah, I mean, that's always really hard. That's like the worst when you have to go up against another listing agent and you're competing against them and they're telling them, oh yeah, you're going to sell in 2 minutes and you're going to be under contract with 57 offers and you go $200,000 over list price. And you're like, well, I just want you to be aware that there's some stuff going on and we're feeling some shiftiness.
Right. It might still go under contract for 200 grand over asking price in 5 seconds, but you're going to look like a hero when it does instead of looking like an ass when it doesn't.
So are you seeing this in spring? So for people who listen to us from all across the country, Angela and I are about an hour apart from each other. So I'm like in her finger quotes, like bigger metro area. And then she's in a really military based area about an hour south of me. So you're seeing it down there too.
Yeah. So Lindsay and I are both in probably 2 of the hottest real estate markets in the country by number. Obviously, Lindsay's price point on average is quite a bit higher than mine by a few $100,000. But Colorado Springs is gaining quickly up on Denver. So yeah, I will say, especially this last week because of spring break here in our area, it's been spring break time. And so the amount of showings that we were getting, the amount of buyers that were out looking at homes was a lot lower than it had been in previous weeks. And I had prepared my sellers for that, letting them know, hey, sometimes weird things happen on the holidays. Military folks typically will go on vacation because they don't get very many opportunities to do that. So they might not be out here, in the buyer world looking at homes. So we might maybe not be showing houses to as many people, maybe not getting as many offers. So just be prepared for that. It might take a little bit longer. It did. It took us until Monday instead of Sunday to get under contract, which honestly, in the grand scheme of things, is 24 hours. And we still got under contract well over asking price on both homes. But the amount of offers was lower. We only had 2 to 3 offers on each property instead of 7 or 8, which honestly I appreciate because I don't like to do that much work and call that many people and give them shitty news. But it's definitely shifting here a little bit. And then the feedback that I'm getting from agents for the most part on listings is that they're overpriced, which you're always going to have agents that say that. But right now, I think that they're saying that because there's not as much competition. And I think, the buyers are going to start jumping back in here probably in the next week or so. But yeah, the interest rates might be scaring some people or changing their buying power a little bit. Our people that were at 500 now can afford 450. So you might be seeing a lot more houses at 450 instead of 500. Doesn't mean they're not buying. No, it just means they're buying at a different price point.
Yeah,
I
think that's huge. Like over the weekend, not in an agent Facebook group, but in a pub, like my neighborhood Facebook group. Like this is like heartbreaking. There was a girl who posted that they went under contract on a new build. This builder that's up here is notorious for the last 2 years that they're taking 18 to 24 months to build a freaking house. When she went under contract, interest rates were in the high 2s. There is no lender out there that can lock you for 2 freaking years.
Yeah, for 2 years.
Right. So they did have a long-term rate lock. It expired. They locked again. That expired and they couldn't lock again. Right. And so now she's gone from high 2s to like almost 5%, and they can no longer afford the house. And so she was actually posting in the group asking, if there was such a thing as a lender who had a lower rate right now, and there were all these, like, people are so rude, it just blows my mind. There are all these people that were like, this was predicted. What are you doing? You must have never been able to afford that house, but that's not true, you guys. Like a 3% interest rate hike that scares people. And even if they can absorb that and they can pay the difference, they don't want to, or it's going to take them a few minutes mentally to wrap their head around it. Now, we get irritated by that because every single day we're out there, all of us preaching like, hey guys, remember what a rate does to your buying power, and we're like, this is why you can't have nice things, because you guys should have listened to us 3 months ago when we told you rates were going up dramatically, but they didn't. I think one of the biggest problems we have in this business is that, like, the news, whether it's local or national, typically reports about
not accurate.
No, they're reporting 90 days behind it, what we're actually seeing in the market. So, we're seeing like a little bit of shiftiness, and they're still reporting that it's the hardest real estate market ever in history. And so, again, we've talked about this so many times on the show. We call it agent musical chairs. This is when the second that anything starts to shift, you start to see properties go on the market, and then within a weekend or a week, they come off the market and they relist with another agent because the clients,
they didn't get the response they wanted.
Right. So the clients automatically think, well, that must be my real estate agent. So they fire their agent and they go with someone else. Right. So we've got to figure out how to handle this, because it's coming. If you're not, like, throw up in the chat if you're already seeing a little bit of this. But if you're not, she coming.
So what are some things that we should be doing, and some education we should be getting, knowing that this might potentially be coming, and so we can get ahead of it? What are some things that we can be doing?
Study your market stats like a fool, like non-stop. And I'm like, every day, get up and study your market stats, watch the trends and watch what's happening. It's okay. So real estate's full of so many variables that it can be very, very difficult to figure out what's actually happening. Did an agent price the house too high? Does the house just suck? Is there really a shift happening? Is there something wrong with the property, right? We're not privy, unless we're out there looking at every comp in person, which is not physically possible, to all the stuff that could be going on. So you need to be studying your stats every single morning, every day, looking at the difference, price percentage over list value. So what did they list for? What did they go under contract at? What did they sell for? How many price reductions happened? What's the days on market, right? And when you go through a shift, this is micro, mini micro, and it changes by the minute, right? So you've got to be in there every day, every morning. That's how I would start your day, looking at what's going on, so that, like Angela said, you can accurately speak to people about what's happening. And no one likes a Debbie Downer or a Karen. They don't like it when you're just like, well, things are changing. You've got to have the data to back it up. If you don't know how to pull that stuff, get in touch with us wherever you're at in the country and we'll help you figure it out. But
I think too, right now, because interest rates seem to be the like hot button for everybody, start doing some research on assumable loans, assumable interest rates. Like that's a major, major way to save your clients some money. And most agents don't do the research on it to understand it. But especially on VA, the VA assumable loan rates are really, really, really good. Because if your clients have bought that house, a couple years ago, they're probably some of them are in the twos, but they're at least in the threes. And that's a massive value, especially if you've got a VA buyer buying that house. They can assume that rate and free up the eligibility for the other person. That's a massive value add for both the buyer and the seller, because you're going to get a much higher offer because they can now afford it. And your buyer is going to be happy because they're going to have a fixed rate at a super awesome interest rate for the next 30 years. I don't really see the problem there. You just need to do some research. It's really not scary. It's not hard. It's not a massive, scary thing for either client if you do the research.
That's really, really smart. I hadn't thought of that one. Can you tell everyone what an assumable interest rate is if they don't know what that means?
Yeah. So if your seller that owns the home bought their house at, let's say, 2.5% interest, the buyer of the house, if it's the same loan type, if it's a VA buying a VA, it will free up the eligibility.
FHA, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So FHA or conventional or anybody can assume a VA rate, but it ties up the eligibility for your seller. So I would never advise that, honestly. That's a really high risk for your seller that they don't need. But if another VA person is purchasing the house, they can assume the rate at 2.5 as long as they go through the lender that the loan is currently with. That's a massive value add. And it's a way to think outside the box without reducing the price of the house.
Huge.
I mean, how much of a value is that, would you say? Like more than $10,000 over the life of the loan? Probably $30,000 or $40,000. So you can now justify raising the price of the house.
Right? Yeah. So I didn't even think about that. Really
on the VA front, also, instead of what we did to counteract high taxes in the new home world, we can still use in the interest rate inflation world. So on a VA loan, instead of just offering the price of the house is what it is, most builders and sellers can do it too, can raise the purchase price of the house and then credit back the buyer the closing cost or some debt reduction to free up that extra income per month for them, which is massive.
You can do that on FHA and conventional as well. You can't do direct debt payoff. That is different. That's unique for VA. And if you have questions, Angela talked about that last week, but if you have questions on it, definitely reach out to her. But so you can always
pay the closing cost.
Let's say the house is worth 500. You can always raise it to 515. There's a threshold, but then you can pay off all those. You can pay closing costs or rate buy downs for people.
Yeah. Or I've done this too in a different market. I offered on the house for my buyers, and we asked the seller to pay X amount of dollars to the contractor of our choice to renovate a kitchen. So they did that, and that was not a VA. It was an FHA, and they could do that. They pay to the contractor directly. So you can do that.
I've done that lots too.
So I would definitely start educating yourself, talking to your lenders, make sure that your lender knows more than anybody else about these loan types and what you can do with each loan type, and make sure that you're getting that knowledge too. It's a massive, massive value add for your clients.
And also, the episode where we had Brian on, we talked about lending a lot, and that's like an amazing episode to go back to. If you can't find it, let us know. We'll tag it. Yeah. But he's a lender. He's amazing. Like, just
the other thing that I would say too, that I think we're going to start seeing if we haven't already, is the agents that stopped using professional photography and home staging will now need to start doing that again out of necessity, because those houses are still the ones that are selling for top dollar and they're selling quickly. But if you're not doing those things, they are sitting. And I'm getting calls all the time from other agents here in town saying, hey, I've got a house listed at 410. I don't know what I should do here. Like, can I hire you to come in and renovate the kitchen for me? stage the house at least. But I don't know why, but this house is sitting on the market. I'm like, well, it's because it's not staged and you took cell phone photos. I mean, that's
we've
why.
talked about this. We've talked about this for 3 years on this show. We've talked about the fact that markets don't last forever, and you've got to continue sharpening your tool and learning new things. And you know, we've done whole episodes of this show on why even in the most wonderful market in real estate history, you can't be lazy, because if you let those skills slide or you don't develop them in the first place, you're in trouble when this shift happens. And like we've said a million times, shifting happens overnight. It can be cool at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, and by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, you're in a completely different market. It really can happen that quickly. Back to your point about lenders, just get with your lender in general. If you don't have a preferred lender, you need to get one, because they need to be in your arsenal big time right now. But talk to them about other types of flexibility too. So again, with current interest rates, how much does it increase or decrease a payment every $5,000 or $10,000 increment? What does it take to buy the rate down a little bit? You know, and then you also need to be like really checking out your clients more carefully too. You know, do they still qualify debt to income ratio wise with a rate increase? If, you know, you have to spend 90 days looking and the Fed increases rates twice again by the time that you get there.
And to what Lindsay's saying, I would be calling every builder in town and asking them what contracts have fallen out. If you've got buyers that are qualified at that interest rate and this price point, you better be thinking outside the box and calling them. I will say I do see a slowdown for builders because of the interest rates.
Big time.
Because people are terrified of trying to figure out what the rate's going to be in 6 months, 8 months, 24 months, when they actually can buy the house and close on the house. I think people are going to be leaning more towards a house that's finished, or at least a house that's almost finished, maybe a spec or an inventory home or a resale over a new build, when previously new builds were like king. So what does that mean? That means those builders are probably going to be calling you again saying, hey, you know, when we stopped paying you for those last 2 years, I think we want to pay you again, because we're losing a lot of money because people are backing out of their contracts.
Womp womp. I want to read. So I had posted this morning getting ready for this, you know, asking people what they're seeing out there in my area, in the Denver area. And I just want to read some of the comments that people commented back, just to add some validity to this. Because like I said, we have definitely talked on the show about things early, and people are like, why are you guys talking about this? I just wrote an offer at $300,000 over asking and I didn't get it. It's because it is changing. And it could be temporary. You know, a lot of times, like when rates increase like that, definitely there's a lot of people who just go pause. Let me see if they're going to go back down. And then they sit there for a minute. But here's some of the comments that other agents said. Someone said the frenzy has definitely calmed down a little bit. I got 2 buyers under contract on their first houses this weekend. One only had to pay $15,000 over asking, and one actually got a seller concession. Limited competition, both were gorgeous houses. Another one said, I took out 2 different buyers this weekend. It was slow. We never saw another buyer at any of the houses that we went to. There were less offers submitted, and there have been more price reductions in the last 7 days. Another agent said, yes, I saw the exact same thing in these price ranges. And then another one said, we had a great listing in X neighborhood in X town at $825,000, which is, I mean, for the town that he's talking about, is actually a pretty good deal. And he said they only had 5 showings and no offers, and they only had 1 showing on Saturday. So, I mean, something's going on for sure. I think that COVID made everyone in the whole world be like, screw this, we're going on spring break, because they haven't been anywhere in years, for sure. Also, we've talked about seasonality. In Colorado, we do 100% of our equity appreciation from January through May. Maybe this year we did it January through March. But, you know, the other thing that I think is the most important thing here is like your mindset. Because like it is rough. I'm going to tell you, to wake up to 9 different sellers, like you're just excited you signed a listing, and then now everybody's panicking. It's really rough. So the number one rule of anything is you cannot panic. If you panic, you know, that would be like, imagine being on an airplane right? And something bad happens and like the pilot throws open the door and the pilot is like, oh my God, we're going down. Not good, right? The pilot's going to come over the loudspeaker and he's going to be like, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be rough, but we are going to be okay. Call a stewardess if you need an extra cocktail or some Dramamine, right? Like you are the pilot. You've got to calm yourself down. Garrett Maroon was on a couple weeks ago. I love that we have all these amazing people that tell us all this crazy stuff that people can go back and listen to. He has this phenomenal thing where he talked about he never wants to speak to someone's emotional brain because that's when the yelling and the crying and the firing and the terrible stuff happens. And so he's really strong about either leaving voicemails or emails or text messages for people and then saying, can we talk about this in an hour or 2 hours? And that gives them some time emotionally to, get themselves under control before they talk to you. But, you definitely can't panic and you've got to get ready for the panic somehow. How do you deal with it when your clients panic, Angela?
Hard. I don't answer the phone. I'm just kidding. Oh man. I feel like I typically set them up pretty well. I do have one client that is a manic panicker, as I call him. He's a single guy, so it's like that's what he does. But what I told him was, look, we can accept one of the offers that came in this weekend sucked. And I was like, yeah, you can accept this offer, or you can just wait a couple days. Let's think about this logically. If you wait a couple days, we'll get some more offers that are probably a little bit more advantageous for you. So ultimately, waiting a few days is worth making you and it actually made him another $30,000 just to wait a couple days.
Amazing.
But it just comes down to expectation setting, I think, with these folks, reassuring them that it's going to be okay, that you're going to take care of things for them, and that this is normal. Like our market is just shifting to a more normal market, and they were smart enough to get ahead of it as much as they could. And now when they go to buy, they're going to be on the other side of it and be able to get a much better deal on the property that you're going to be helping them purchase. So, they're going to be getting their money back there too without having to overspend on that house. So
I have so many questions. So are you going to, okay, first of all, to what you just said, when you said you told him to wait a couple days, that's why you got to go back to knowing your data, because if you didn't know that waiting a couple days would be advantageous and you made him wait another week or 2 weeks or whatever, then you could really screw him and he could lose more money, right? So you got to know the difference.
Well, I just pulled the numbers. I looked at my hit counter and I said, hey, this house is not getting enough views and it shows perfectly. So what is really going on here? Is it the house? Probably not. It's probably the traffic. So how do I get this house out to more people? So I did some more Facebook campaigns. I did a little bit more because I wanted to get it in front of more people. And ultimately we ended up selling it to home partners, to somebody that's never seen the house. The buyers aren't here, but they're going to be renting the house from home partners and it's perfect for them. Great. And home partners is willing to spend well over asking for it. For my seller, it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just had to wait for that buyer to come. And they had to wait for home partners to be in the office, which it doesn't happen on the weekend. You have to wait until Monday. So
how do you know when you waited too long? How do you know when it's time to drop a price?
When you are not getting any showings, like it's usually price if you're not getting any. If you're getting one or two, there's something going on. But if all of a sudden you get zero and you got no prospects and you're calling the other agents that have showed that property and asking them for feedback and the feedback is not good and there's something wrong with the property and you haven't addressed that, you need to go back and address that and then relist it. Because there's no reason for you to leave it on the market stale for somebody else to eventually make an offer on and come in well under asking. There's obviously something wrong with the property. And it's not just price. So usually price is not a prohibiting factor for somebody writing an offer. They'll still write an offer. It'll just be under asking. But there's something preventing them from writing that offer, and it might be something wrong with the house.
I agree. And again, I go back to, we both are like psychos about our data. So for me, again, in my listing presentation, I bring the data with me so they can see I'm not just making it up, right? But I always tell my clients, in your price point, we should have X amount of showings a week, right? And X amount of show. So okay, so in the price point I typically work, We should have 7 to 8 showings a week. 10 to 11 showings should translate to an offer if we're priced correctly. Meaning, if we don't have 7 to 8 showings per week, something is wrong. And if we go through 20, 30, 40, 50 showings and we don't have an offer, something is wrong. So, and then if we go past average days on market, which again, I bring with me, your average days on market is X, and we don't have an offer, something is wrong. And that's, for me, when you get those three going together, you don't have enough showings, you've had over average days on market, or you've been through an excessive amount of showings with no offers. And here's the thing, this is a funny one for me. Feedback is so weird because, you know, clients will get the feedback and they'll say, but nobody said specifically it was overpriced. If you are going over the threshold of the number of showings that you should have and the average days on market, it doesn't matter whether or not they specifically said your property is overpriced by $27.2. Nobody sees the value in the property to make an offer. That means that you are overpriced, or like Angela's a way outside of the box thinker, or there's something wrong that you need to go in and correct, fix, spruce up, change, do.
Yeah. And then put it back on the market. Don't leave it like that. Like if you're getting constantly, if agents are too lazy to actually fill out the feedback properly and they're just giving you a number rating and they're giving you 3s or 2s, even 4s, like if my properties don't have 5s, I've done something wrong. Or the agent's a dick. But if I'm getting 2s and 3s, there is something wrong with that house that I haven't figured out. I haven't been in the house long enough for some reason to be able to see what it is, or some kind of defect. Or recently there's been a lot of HOA issues here in town, where the HOA might be having a massive assessment. And the agent maybe didn't do the research to find that out, but the buyers know about it because they're on these neighborhood pages before they buy a house in there, because they want to know all the things. And they might be more educated than the agent. And so they want to know
community, right? It's more than just knowing the house. No,
right. So you have to know that stuff up front.
Community, right? Like, yeah. So, great example, Angela. So know your house, your product, right? And then know your neighborhood and your city. So you are a salesperson. You are selling that property. Unfortunately, a lot of people they've only ever worked in a market where they've never had to sell before. They literally just line up and present offers on a spreadsheet. When a shift happens, you have to pull out those sales skills. So the best salesperson, like imagine going to a hiking boot store. You're going to go hike Machu Picchu, big deal, and you need hiking boots. You don't want to walk into Walmart where some dude is like, well, I don't know, we have 2 brands. Which color do you like? You want to go to the store where the guy is going to be like, this one is better because that climate is hot and your feet won't sweat. This one is better because that ground is loose and you won't slip. And this one is better because you have fat ankles and it's not going to rub your feet, right? Like, so you need to know your product. No one wants to work with someone who doesn't know their product, whether buying or selling. So know not only your product, which is the house, know your community, know your city. So like, for example, the last 2 weekends, I was really struggling with one that is way up north. And it took me a second to realize that every person who lives in that city is in oil and gas.
Yeah.
And what is happening with oil and gas right now, right? All of those people are freaking out. There's a lot going on. And so it took me a minute to realize that the whole city was a little bit on shutdown and buying freeze because they were panicking. So I mean, ideally you know this stuff before you list a property, but if you don't and you start to get into trouble, then that's when you really got to dig in and figure out what the heck is going on.
Yeah. And I would say, piggybacking off of that, like knowing your neighborhood that you're selling in, I would talk to your sellers if they're part of that page for the neighborhood, see if they can add you to it, because the best advertising that you can get is saying, hey, I'm an agent here. I'm selling so-and-so's house. It's beautiful. Who do you guys know that you want to be a neighbor of this person? Now you're in that group. Now you then can add all of those people to your sphere. They may have had an agent previously, but if you are working hard and trying to be more geographically inclined and taking over a neighborhood, the best way to do that is to get into that page. And the best way to stay in that page is to have the people that live there give you constant great reviews. And always post, like, those are the first places where people are like, hey, I'm thinking about selling my house. Those other neighbors are going to be your biggest fans or your biggest deterrent. So get them on your side if you can. But then you're not going to be competing with a whole bunch of people, you know.
Wow.
That was one of the things that I did when I sold new homes is I started a bunch of Facebook pages. And I didn't post just houses, you know, I posted stuff about each community and what was going on and what are some of the things that might be affecting the community, road work that's going to be happening, yard sales, missing dogs, whatever the hell it is, like just anything that was going on. Like the more you can become involved in the neighborhood and add those neighbors to your page. If you can't join the neighborhood page because it's run by a realtor, because it usually is, you need to have something that attracts those people to your page. Something that's constant and repetitive is not going to be it. It's not going to be a picture of two different kitchens, picking which one you like better. People do not give a shit. That's not going to get you any business. But saying, hey, here's so-and-so's kitchen. I just wanted to show you. We just remodeled his house. I'm sure you guys saw it before. If you want to come over and see it, we're going to have a big charcuterie board over here. We would like to have everybody come over and check it out and see what you think and give us some feedback on it. He's going to be selling his house soon. So if you guys know anybody that might be looking to, you know, move to the neighborhood, feel free to bring them with you. That's a little bit more powerful than stock image photo A versus stock image photo B, right? Just be a better realtor.
Okay, what are things in the toolbox? Okay, things in the tool. Well, hang on. Before we go there, I want to go back to something you said. We were talking about feedback a second ago. When you start to go through a shift, or when you're not in a seller's market, you got to dig into that feedback harder, right? So it's not just like, oh, Showing Time sent me the report and everyone gave it a 2. Like Angela said, right? Like get on the phone,
all them,
send a text message,
acknowledge
that you're annoying them, right? So that you can get a response. You know, like I'll usually say like, hey, I'm so sorry to bug you. I know that you're probably super busy, but I am getting my ass handed to me on this property right now, and I really need your help. Is there anything we could have done to make it an A? How far off am I on the price? What could we have done? You know, like what was it that your clients hated about it? What was it that made them not like it? Like you really got to dig in to that feedback.
What's something that we can do to this property to put it over the top, because we're tired of always being a bridesmaid. We want to be the bride. Like, what can we do? You know, it might be something as small as like $1,000. Like that's all it could be, you know, like it might be a, you know, $1,000 credit towards closing costs. That's much better than reducing the price of the house by 15 grand.
So sellers ask a lot. They love to ask this question, and there are, I'll be very honest with you, after 20 years, there are questions that they ask me that sometimes I have to say to them, I don't have a good answer for that. I just know that something is wrong, right? And it's okay to say that too, but they love to ask, well, why didn't someone just offer lower then? So, you know, like whatever, I 12 people come through and my answer, I want to hear yours. My answer to that is usually some combination of like, A, the market over the last several years has trained buyers to believe that they can't. And so they probably just assumed that they can't. And maybe even remember that NAR says, National Association of Realtors says 82% of agents in this market have only been in license for 3 years. So they're 82% of the agent force right now also doesn't know that they can maybe offer less, or when their clients ask them to, they feel uncomfortable. And then my other answer is always be, you know, there's still something that isn't hitting for them. There is still something that kept them from feeling like the value was there in the property to write you a lower offer. Right. That one's really tough because they will, you know, when you go to them for a price reduction, they're going to say to you, well, why didn't someone just offer lower? So I think, you know, you need to know how to answer that question.
Yeah. And I would say probably the exact same thing as Lindsay. I usually say we're conditioned as agents to not offend the seller by coming in with a lower offer. And us as agents, you know, as a listing agent, if I see an agent that submits an offer that's 20 or 30 grand on our asking price, it's almost laughable right now. It might not be here in the future pretty quickly. But
It wasn't
honestly, what that tells me is there's something wrong with my property that I have to fix so that I can get top dollar for that property. I don't want my seller to have to concede $30,000 because their bathroom isn't updated. I can very easily go in and update their bathroom for a couple grand and put it back on the market. And then that's a conversation you can have with that buyer's agent and say, hey, what is it that they didn't like about the bathroom? My seller is willing to renovate the bathroom for them. We'll even let them pick the colors as long as they are coming in at least at X price. Overcome that objection. Don't make it too hard.
Love it. But you've got to get the word you just used, objection. You've got to get to what the objection is, right?
Yeah, you have to find what the real objection is, because usually on the feedback sheets, you're just going to get a whole bunch of bullshit that was filled out as quickly as possible to check the box for us as agents. But you need to get to the real problem with the house, or what the issue is with your pricing, or maybe it's your marketing. Maybe you're not marketing to enough people aren't seeing it. So you need to, start running Facebook ads again.
Well, and I will tell you another sign of a shift for me is this phone thing going nuts from other real estate agents. So good agents will call each other. So all weekend long, hey, I see you have a property listed. I'm not getting any showings. Are you getting any showings? Dude, I only had 3 showings this weekend. What did you have? So also engage with your real estate agent community, and start talking to them, because again, I think we have 2 major problems as listing agents. And therefore as buyer's agents, because they don't get the same information. We never know what a property is under contract for until it closes. So we don't know the truth about what that comp actually is until it's closed and recorded. And it's very difficult sometimes to get the real information on what's happening. So you got to get out there and dig for it. Dude, buy agents Starbucks cards. You can buy them a $5 coffee if they will answer feedback for you in a real way, This
is a time where having those realtor relationships is probably the best possible thing that you can do for your clients. So right now, I'm posting everything ahead of time that I have coming soon on my Facebook page, and letting other agents that are buyer's agents statistically on my social media know that I have these properties coming, and I'm calling them and reaching out and saying, hey, you guys have anybody coming up that might be a good fit for X, Z, whatever property it is that's coming, because I'd like to get them under contract before other people come out to see the house, because they still want to write offers on your properties. If you're that kind of agent, they know that if they're writing an offer on one of my properties, it's going to be perfect. And I'm going to give them a heads up as to what finishes are going in there. And hey, I might even let them, if their buyers are going to go under contract on the property, let them pick out some finish colors for the house. Then they're getting a custom home.
I just want to say this. Angela is so brilliant, but sometimes for newer agents or people that just don't have the money, or people that don't want to deal with this stuff, it can be overwhelming, because she's so unique and incredible in the fact that she has the infrastructure behind her to go and do all this. But you can still go and do all of that. You guys find a local contractor in your market who you trust, who's reliable, who shows up, who's inexpensive. Get into partnership with him. Find somebody who will. So it is illegal for money to exchange between buyer and seller outside of the contract. It is not illegal for money to exchange to a licensed business for the buyer or for the seller. So find a contractor, ABC Joe's Contracting, who will renovate the bathroom for $5,000 and take the check for that at the closing from the title company. It's got to go on the settlement statement, obviously. And if you have questions about that, call us, because this can be creepy legal stuff where you can get in trouble really fast. You want to be careful, but you can do that. You can find a painter who will either come in mid-listing and paint for you, or get paid at closing. There are so many different ways. Yeah. Same with a stager, same with a carpet cleaner, same with a house cleaner. So many different things that you can do. To be able to set yourself up if you're not as talented or experienced as Angela, don't get overwhelmed. You can still do these things, And
call those agents in your market that are doing those things and figure out how they're doing it. And I have agents all the time calling me saying, hey, can we hire your company to come in and renovate one of my listings, or stage one of my listings and then get paid at closing? I'm like, yeah, that's my business model. It's all good. We can do that.
Yep.
You're not my competition. So,
And I do it for clients as well. I do it on a much more limited scale than Angela does. It's not my business model, but I've definitely done it in the past. And usually agents have lots and lots of questions about like, well, what happens if, they bail or they don't sell? That's a conversation that we can have offline, not because it's unethical, just because that's not what we're talking about today, but just know that there's millions of ways ethically and legally that you can help your clients. And she's right. Like sometimes I've had a property go, in other markets, it sat on the market for 90 days. And then, I dug in super hard on a micro level to all that feedback and found out that everyone felt that the carpet looked old and dirty, and it literally took a carpet cleaning with a pet enzyme to get some smell out to get the property sold. It was like $400. $400 versus taking what, a 50 buyers psychologically believe that everything is 10 times more expensive and 10 times more complicated
than it actually is.
Always.
When I started doing renovations, the one thing that I did every single house that was a super low cost but a massive impact was I did accent walls. I just did an accent wall in a house because I resold a lot of new builds and they were all pretty vanilla. So I had to find ways for them to stand out. And so that's one of the things that I did is I added backsplash, which was super cheap. I staged the house and I did accent walls, and the total renovation for that was less than $3,000. And you've got all of these investors right now that are still not able to buy houses and flip them. So what they're doing is they've got all this money just sitting around. You might as well talk to them and say, hey, would you like to invest with me and start doing some small renovations on my listings? You're going to get paid back at closing. The risk is less because you're not having to carry the whole load of the entire note. You're just carrying the load of the renovation.
Well, let me tell you guys a story. Hopefully she doesn't mind me saying this. And I think that the people that are involved watch the show sometimes, and so I want them to know how much I love them. But as a gift to me last year, Angela, for my birthday, she renovated my whole office, and it's the most beautiful room in my whole house, and everyone that walks in is obsessed with it. But she did a feature wall that I found on Pinterest, and she gave someone that she was connected to, he'd never done one before. And I watched them, and they were in my office together, and she was walking him through like how to cut the boards correctly at the right angle and how to do the dimensions. And he was learning, and like she launched a whole career for this guy. And this guy now is able to, if he wants to, have a whole business that he owns where he's doing carpentry and all this stuff. And so, think outside of the box in that way too. Like there's, the other day, again, like we're big on our community. Go to your community first. The other day, someone posted, sellers left piles and piles of dog shit all over my listing. I'm out of town. What the hell do I do? And all these people were like, oh, I guess you gotta leave your vacation and go pick it up yourself, and then all these other people were like, call the pooper scooper companies that are $1 million. And I was like, no, dude, people are struggling right now. Go on the local Facebook page and post that you will pay cash or Venmo for an hour's worth of light yard cleanup, and you will have 20 responses in 5 minutes. Maybe there's a kid. Maybe there's someone who lost a job. Maybe there's a woman. We have a woman in my market who's the best painter in the state. Like she's unreal. She's a house painter. Maybe there's a woman out there. Maybe there's someone out there who is also dying to learn how to do things. And because they're not like full blown, they're not that expensive. And you guys could partner together, pay them at closing, and make your listings incredible and help your community.
Right. And now you have a person that in the future, if you need that service, you've got them on speed dial and they appreciate that extra business. And if they can't do it, maybe they can sub it out to somebody else. Like my daughter does that shit all the time. Like when I hire her to do something around the house, she'll sub it out to my son, and she'll still get paid for it, but she's subcontracting it out to him because she's smart. My son is not so much. So, but yeah, so that kind of thing is how people start businesses. So grow your sphere that way and be smart about it. Like getting all of these people in your arsenal and having them in your back pocket is massive value add for you as an agent and for your clients. That's the way that you're going to stand out in any market, let alone one that might be shifting a little bit.
A shift means outside of the box. Like that's so to me, a shift means two things. Well, three things. Number one, get your mindset right. It's going to scare the shit out of you. You cannot let your clients feel that. We talk about all the time, a good agent is a sponge. you've got to absorb all the crap and emotions before it gets to the client. That's like literally your whole job. You cannot be the pilot that says that the plane is on fire. So a shift to me says, number one, get your own mindset right. Be prepared for having tougher conversations. Be prepared for crying. Be prepared for yelling. Be prepared with your data and your solutions, right? So number two, dig into your data. Have an actual source behind, well, I think this is what's happening. Dig into your data. And number three, think outside the box and be willing to go and do the things that other people aren't doing.
Yeah, and now is a great time to call those FSBOs because these houses are not selling themselves anymore. Guess what? So those companies that start with a Z that typically were able to sell anything because any moron could, now are maybe not able to because the market's shifting. You need a little bit more than just, I'll throw it in the MLS and forget about it. Now this market is going to require a different level of agent that they can't possibly provide through a website. So
yeah,
they're gonna need more.
Yeah, ding, 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 that's genius. I wanted to bring up one last thing before we sign off for the day. So, when it comes to pricing, I think part of what I saw in this market, at least again, because I know my data, that would happen here that would cause these huge swings where properties would sell for $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 over list price was that an agent was still listing low, right? And so on the show for a long time over the last year, we've been saying, don't do that. Like, you're not in a market where you need to artificially price low to artificially inflate buyer interest. We are shifting a little bit. So I don't want you to swing so low that you end up looking like a psychopath, right?
Because you're not going to be getting the amount of offers that you think you're going to be getting.
Right. But I do think you should go a little lower than you have been, in my opinion, if you're starting to see a shift. So, where I might have listed at 700, now I might go 690 or 689, right? So I'm not going to go 650 or 620, because when you go too low in a shift,
you attract the wrong buyer completely.
If you don't get all those buyers and you can't get back up, you just screw the pooch real, real bad. So
yep, you lose the listing. That's what happens.
Yeah. So just a little bit, just a little bit. But I do think that, when you're talking to people, if you were going to go 800, maybe now it's 790. I mean, just a little bit. But again, go through the data. Look at.
Yeah. You're not just setting your own prices anymore. You've got to use some data here, and you got to be smart about it. Normally I would list at, what I think the house will sell for, and then just let the market go crazy. But I'm telling my sellers, hey, I think we should start at X number. Now I'm definitely going $5,000 or $10,000 lower than I normally would. So that if we get those crazy high offers, they're shocked and they think that I did an incredible job, not the other way around. So make your life easier, not harder.
Also, okay, so the one thing that they're going to ask you too that we didn't talk about is, but wait a minute, if I make a price reduction or if I sit on the market longer than 1 week, and everyone is going to think something is wrong with the house, and then something really bad is going to happen and I'm never going to sell, and then they start to escalate and panic, right?
Right.
You need to be able to combat that objection as well. And again, I think Angela said it the best at the very beginning. You can't just go to them and say, well, it's because I said so. Like, that doesn't even work as a parent. Well, Mom, why can't I stay out past my curfew? Because I said so. That doesn't work. Well, why do I have to have a price reduction? Because I said so. It doesn't work. So you need the data, and you need to be able to show them X amount of houses had a price reduction, or no houses had a price reduction. And if we're the first one to make one, then maybe we're the one that sells, right? Or, this is like, I've gone through the data and I can show you that you're priced at 550 and everything at 540 is popping fast. So let's go to 540, right? So you need to have the data, but that's another big objection that you need to learn how to overcome emotionally. And I usually do it by just saying to them, you have to remember that a market in which a property sells in 2 days with 57 offers isn't normal.
Yeah.
right? It is normal for you to sit on the market longer than one weekend. And everyone else is also sitting on the market longer than one weekend. This isn't isolated to just you. If it is isolated to just you, do the other things. But but like also all these people made a price reduction. It's not isolated to just you, but you do have to. That's a huge. I don't know how you deal with that one, but that's another tough one because they really feel like sellers always seem, in my opinion, to feel like if they just sit there and they take no action, eventually, like we said earlier, someone's going to come in and offer them lower, and they're okay with taking it. They're okay with taking lower, but they don't want to take the action of making a price reduction because they're afraid that it makes them look like something is wrong with them, and then they're going to have to reduce more. So how do you deal with this one?
I think that it's important as the market does shift that as listing agents, you guys are going to the other houses that are listed that weekend and looking at them. So in case, your house is still on the market on Monday, you know why. You know what your competition's showing. You know what that house smells like. You can't see that in pictures. You can't see that, that house had fresh baked cookies in it. Clearly the, furnace filters were changed. There was pride of ownership in that house. Like the carpets were immaculate. You can't see that in photos. If you can, they're usually not real. And what people are experiencing. You need to see what the buyers are seeing. So you know why you're the bridesmaid, not the bride. So that you can fix that, or you can reduce the price to compensate for it. So I think that you're going to have to start getting more involved in the process.
I love that.
It can't just be we throw it in the MLS and forget about it. It'll happen eventually. That's not the best thing for your seller.
The 3 Ps, right? Put a sign in the yard, put it in the MLS, pray to God someone else sells it. You got to do 4th P, which is proactive. And Angela's always said on this show for years now, like if you're an agent who isn't doing enough business, that you're busy all day long as real estate as a job, there is zero excuse for you not being out in your market. And it's like that's the worst thing for so many reasons, because we know that action creates momentum, which eventually creates business. So you need to get off the couch and do something. But also B, that is how you learn the microeconomics and the micro ecosystems of every community. You go to the builders, you go to the open houses, you set showings on things. So if you're not busy 5 hours a day, however many hours a day, doing your job as real estate, this is the time to get out there and look at what's going on and sharpen those tools.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we become more involved and, not just popping by to pop by. Like if you're popping by somebody's house, maybe talk to them instead of just throwing something on their porch and running away. Maybe pick up a phone and call your clients and say, hey, here's what I see happening in the market. Now might be a good time for you guys to sell that house and either get into a rental temporarily if you're getting orders in the next month, 2 months, 3 months, or you guys were looking at maybe listing in August. I think we should probably look at maybe listing now. Those are very easy phone call conversations to have if you've done the research. So do the research.
Someone said this yesterday in a meeting that I sat in on, and I thought this was the most brilliant thing in the world, and we can close with this. He said, not a lot of people understand the difference between just selling houses and owning a business, but the difference is going from working for tips, which yes, commissions are the best tips in the world, but from working for tips to owning your own future forever and never having to worry about when the next tip is coming, right? So this is how you do that. Shift is scary. It's always scary. We just went through a big one with coronavirus. This business, the minute that you get your footing underneath you, something will change. It's scary. I think it's important for you guys to know we've both been at this 20 plus years. It's scary for us. It's not just because you're new that it's scary. It's scary for everyone, and that never changes, unfortunately.
But just learn how to deal with it, and it triggers a response with, okay, this is what's happening now. Okay, so now we have to go back and do this. It's just, repetition and knowing what to do if a market changes.
Exactly. So, just go out there, sharpen your sword, call for help when you need it. Getting community, that's a big one with other people, because this is when it gets really emotionally hard. You need to have someone that you can talk to that won't destroy your marriage, or your best friendships when you have to call every 5 minutes and cry because you're getting screamed at, or you're having a really hard day, right? So getting community with other agents, call us if you need us. And we love you guys. I feel like thanks for letting us talk in advance about something that people probably think we're nuts about, but not one time have we ever reported fake news that didn't turn real.
It's not fake news. And if anybody's going to the Abundance Conference and wants to come and meet us for snacks or coffee or something, just reach out to us. We're always down for snacks. At least I am. Always down for snacks.
Angela likes cheeseburgers. I like chocolate. Well, actually, we both like everything. But if you're in Kansas City or anywhere even close to it,
there better be barbecue.
We would love to see you. So we love you guys, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Bye.